All right, this week's episode of The Flash was very intense because for one point we get a villain that can actually siphon the Flash's abilities. Now I don't know if that means he can siphon anyone's abilities or it was just the Flash because his involved some kind of static electricity or nervous system that allowed him to run fast. I have no idea. Maybe that needs more explanation. Hopefully we get that in the future episodes. And of course, he has no power, so he can't really do anything. And the kid will come at the worst time because then the police station falls under hostage. Hostage crisis. With Joe and Iris and her boyfriend and some other random people being held by. Now I'm pretty sure this guy is, already famous in the Flash comic books as someone we already know. But he's interested in clocks and time and stuff like that. He has these weird glasses, and yeah, he probably has already been established as a comic book character, and I don't know him, but he's interesting. He's definitely interesting. I want to see more from him, so I'm just gonna call him the Clock Man or Time Man. Maybe it's Clock Man or Mr. Time. I'm calling him Mr. Time. That's what I'm calling him, Mr. Time. Mr. Time is holding all these people hostages, and of course, he wants all these things to escape, and all the time he's coming up with these phrases and philosophical sayings, something like that, and Joe's saying them right back, and he's just like, oh, I'm impressed, and this cop knows a lot. And he's like, all right, cool. And of course, the hostage situation, Iris is constantly thinking like, oh, the Flash will be here to stop you, the Flash will be here to save us. It was like, no, not really. And I was kind of afraid it's gonna fall into like, oh, as a superhero, now that you're a superhero, you're expected to be there always, constantly. And it's just like when you can't be there, you let down some people. It doesn't really matter how great your powers are. You're gonna, be absent for some danger, some events. And it sucks, but it's gonna happen. And I think the people who really need to realize this more than anyone is not just the superhero, but the people that depend on him too much. Because really, if you put too much faith in a superhero, you're eventually going to be let down so badly that you're not only going to lose faith in him, you're just going to hate him. He's just another, bad person. And that's just not something you should jump to. It's really not. But either way, of course, with Iris, eventually the police get in their helicopter and a laptop. That's what he wanted. And I guess a meal too. I think he ordered for a meal too. But either way, he takes Iris. And, of course, she brings a gun with her, from her boyfriend because he was shot in the arm. He's bleeding out. And when he gives her 30 seconds to say goodbye because he never had that, with his sister, which is pretty good, backstory. It's like he wanted 30, to say goodbye to his sister before he was arrested, but the cops wouldn't let him. And I just like, that's kind of dumb because I don't think cops cops would do that. It's like, okay, we'll give you a few seconds to say goodbye to your sister, but I guess they didn't do that. But either way, like he gives them 30 seconds to say goodbye to each other, and that 30 seconds he gives her the gun. It's like, here, take my gun, use it to protect yourself or take the guy down. I have, whatever. And of course, when they get to a certain point in the hallway, she shoots him in the leg and pretty much incapacitates him. And everyone's okay. Iris is okay. And of course, she's a little rattled because, it was a hostage situation. Just like pretty much, I think the first time she's been in one. And the guy, Mr. Time is taken away and he's got, bullet wound in his leg. But, everything's okay there. But, of course, the majority of this episode that really shocked me was, with the Flash. At first his powers get siphoned and they don't know how to get it back. He's just, slow now. But his genetics are still the same. He still has the altered DNA, the metahuman DNA, so it's possible that he get his powers back. But he needs a jump start, pretty much an electric shock of, I think they said 24,000 volts or 28,000, somewhere in the 20,000s. But either way, the question is whether he'll survive or not, and of course all that stuff. And of course the guy. I think they call him Blackout. Blackout comes in, wanting revenge against Wells for turning him into this electric man. And apparently he killed his two best friends when they were trying to, revive him and give him CPR. And at the time, his powers were awakening, and he fried his friends. It was like, ouch, that's gotta hurt. Like, his life is ruined. So of course, he's mad at Wells. He wants to kill him, and he's just breaking into Star Labs and just wrecking the place. And the whole time they're trying to escape him, while at the same time giving Barry his powers back. Wells goes into the prison and calls out to Tony, the bully from last episode, and tells him, "Hey, I need your help with something. I'll give you your freedom, but you need to kill this guy." And I'm thinking is like, well, he is made out of metal, so I guess that would pretty much let him, withstand some of his attacks. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, with enough energy, you can burn right through metal. So it's like, it's really a matter of how powerful this guy is with electricity. But either way, they start fighting. It's just like, all right, this is going to be a cool fight. But of course, they go, they pan out to something else. It's like, oh, I wanted to see that fight. But either way, they succeed in shocking Barry, but it doesn't work. I mean, he's able to vibrate his hand, but he's still not able to run fast. So, it's still just a question as to, how do we get his powers back to get working to full percent again? And they mentioned that it's not really something physical, that's something mental. There's something mentally blocking him from achieving that speed again. Like, what it is, I have no idea. But either way, they're trying to escape, they run into Tony. And he's bleeding, it looks like some of his skin has been fried. And he just outright dies. And at first it was shocking. It's like, wow, they just killed someone right on screen. Damn. But at the same time, it's just like, it was a bully from last episode that only had maybe 30 seconds of redemption. I mean, I guess on some point, I'm glad that they redeemed him, that he's not completely horrible. He's just another human being. He actually does have a good heart. He's just a lot of anger and testosterone. But, I mean, I think it came too soon and it was over with too quickly. I was kind of hoping it lasts a little longer and we get to know more about his character, maybe some background on his parents and how he was raised or something like that. But no, we don't. It's just like, oh, he's, he wants to fight. He gets a chance to fight. He loses. He dies. Okay. I mean, again, I respect his sacrifice and I feel bad for him dying, but I think we could have gotten a bit more out of him as a character. But, either way, he's dead now, so I guess we're not. Anyway, though, of course, he's dead, and Barry is mad at Wells for letting him go and pretty much sacrificing himself. And at some point, Wells, he's the kind of guy who says, sacrifice the few to save the many. Pretty much like a soldier. But at the same time, there's some things he won't do. He has some morals. And of course, Barry is the naive guy who's like, no, I should be able to save everyone. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not going to be able to save everyone. It's just too idealistic, too big of a dream for anyone to accomplish. But, either way, maybe he'll learn that later on in the series as it goes. It's a pretty good lesson to learn. But either way, of course, when they're trying to escape, but of course, Blackout, overcomes them. He surprises them and blocks their way out of the lab. And pretty much, Wells comes in trying to sacrifice himself. It's like, look, you're mad at me. Take me out. Don't, take these kids out. They're innocent in all this. All right. They have so much to do in the future. They have a bright path ahead of them. Just kill me. And it brings up a good question because he says, like, do you even know who my friends were? They died because of what I became, what you turned me into. And Wells actually remembers their names. And he also remembers all the names of all the other people that died that day and possibly even all the metahumans that he's run into. He knows who they are. He knows what he's done to them. And in some way, he does feel guilty. I mean, it's true that he believes in sacrificing the few to save the many, but that doesn't mean you don't forget the few that were sacrificed. And I like that part of Wells. See, he can be a bit shady. He can be a bit, questionable in his actions, but he feels bad. He feels remorse. And I believe as long as you feel regret, you're still human. You're still capable of being a good person. Because as soon as you don't feel regret for what you do, as soon as you don't feel any remorse for someone's death in your hands, that's when I consider you a pretty much heartless monster that needs to be put down. Remorse is a very powerful emotion for anyone to feel and anyone to actually sympathize with. But either way, and of course, Blackout attacks Wells, and I'm thinking is like, well, maybe Wells has some powers, because it looked for a split second, it looked like he teleported out of his wheelchair so he can flung himself, so it would look like he was attacked. And of course, Barry saves him and takes on Blackout. He gets his speed back, pretty much concerned for Wells, and that's pretty much the mental block that he was, needed to overcome. And I suppose the way they took him out is Blackout was feeding too much energy on Flash, and Flash was just, had more energy than ever. So Blackout pretty much just knocked himself out, choked on eating too much energy, and that's pretty much it. And when they put him in the prison and the bag, I'm thinking like maybe the bag is supposed to be insulated so he won't escape or something like that. Or maybe he's dead. Because if he's dead, it was like, oh, they just killed 2 people in this episode, no problem. And it's like, oh, damn, that's scary. But it pretty much ends with, Wells taking some DNA from the guys. It's like, how did you siphon the Flash's powers? I want to know. So that's going to be something in the future. But either way, again, this was a great episode. I liked the villain this time. Tony's sacrifice was kind of iffy, but it was still, appreciated. Iris' realization that she shouldn't depend too much on the Flash. He's not some ideal god to come down to save people. It's just like, he's just another guy. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to not be there for everyone. And she needs to realize that, as much as Flash needs to realize he's not going to be able to save everyone. But either way, it was interesting to see more of Wells' character and pretty much all the action in this one. It was pretty exciting. I loved it. Great episode. Can't wait for the next one. Till then, I'm Tony Dragon. Bye-bye.